Sanjay Chodon Chodri Chonama Janjo Pato Dani Kyasuji Dagi Jinjo Jibe Sonandi Tola Pincha Sanjay Rupasho Sanjay Chodon Chodri Chonama Janjo Pato Dani Kyasuji Dagi Jinjo Jibe Sonandi Tola Pincha Sanjay Rupasho Sanjay Chodon Chodri Chonama Janjo Pato Dani Kyasuji Dagi Jinjo Jibe Sonandi Tola Pincha Sanjay Rupasho Tende tila kazambashi lager. Yu kanda kala tene kegi du sehechi. Yu tila tene ya tebu kari kari kegi du sehechi. Samtada niga yung chobarwa. Dijidi ane mishintali ne kewa ina. Kazanyi wala wanashi. Kongzho che kunzin che ne kewa ina. Kranchi bulla ne kena da tigor de ta kwe phama na nyen chen la ne ke di chuli chin de ba je de tigma res la yorwa ta dina hin pha ne kena mu kwe mal ne ke gi du sin pha ne ke wa de ta tigor la sho ra da ting sa bo ga ma do na ine su 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 ne ka sin ke wa ji di ta khong da sa yo di kar chi de res na ane pha ne wi khu ji ne su su ne le ga ma bu je mu Now,
with regard to interdependence or dependent arising here, as explained before, talking about what causes are responsible for certain situations, or what kind of results arise as a result of a certain situation. So we should think about this as something to be considered, the causes and the result with regard to certain actions. So when we harm another person out of anger, out of resentment, not only do we harm that person, so it's clear that we harm that person, but moreover we harm this person's friends, parents, other relatives, and so forth. So here, from the point of view of harming another person, so why are we harmed ourselves? In the sense, like how does the anger that arises in our continuum, how does that harm ourselves? So it's clear that the anger that arises in our continuum before we inflict harm on another person, that type of anger is harmful, and so we should consider how this is harmful.
Karsiguri, that's part never gaining Suzuma. That two never tuning my own, but that Chasa just Jatama, Young Meva, then Canada and Nakin Ozera. Young you were shingi, Patichido. The Dekajeta, Kose Torres and Arashinishi and Chopard, Takizeti. Namji, me, done a chommy, Yoshirata. In a condo delay of the debating legal.
So if we harm someone, if nothing happens to us in return, well, that's an advantage. That's an advantage for us. If we harm someone, if no one retaliates, well, that's definitely a benefit. But if we know there's some kind of disadvantage, sometimes due to the anger, we accept the kind of disadvantage from someone harming us as a response to us harming this person. So we may even think, well, if I die, I die. If they kill me, they kill me. So a person of intelligence, someone who's intelligent, would say, what is the point of that? Harming someone and then being killed in response to that. So someone with intelligence would consider this to be meaningless or pointless. But out of anger, one is unable to make kind of sensible decisions, and so therefore one may even give up one's own life out of anger.
직시에 지어래 미니 가사디 점점 더 되는 더 추나로 주신 준지 되는지 디 주신 나가 되잖아요. 공신을 시불라 공자로 지나는 맞아버지 공도 시부사다다 봐. 아니 공신이가 주신 나한테는 감사함지는 마 스튜디 주신 이상 된지 추야 리용을 다 저보들라 예 저보다 직디 되기 공도 되기 성공 되었다. 로봇이 다 출리용도 다 인가도 다 주신 디베 인가도 다 나디 다그 공도디 디나도 주신 디그리 주신 철라도 그래 디마도 소스 디그리에 서로 거가만 다 공도디 디네 디주죠 되게 배 공자로 지서 킹자로 지금 들어요.
So there's a story, some event that happened in India. There were two friends who wanted to take a trip. They wanted to take a boat, rent a boat, and take a trip at a lake. And so when they went to take the boat, they wanted to rent the boat. And when they asked the person owning the boat about the price, they were told a relatively like a high price, and so therefore they got upset. They got really angry, and they kind of argued with this person back and forth about the price. Anyway, the price didn't go down, and they took the boat to kind of drive onto the lake, or to go onto the lake. And when they came to the center of the lake, water came into the boat. So there was the boat wasn't had some leakage, and so water came in. And one person was still thinking about the fight they had with the owner of the boat. And so the other person was saying, well, let's be careful here, all this water comes in, it may sink. But the other person, who was still angry about the altercation, felt like he wanted to sink the boat. So in order to harm the owner of the boat, he kept thinking of just sinking the boat without thinking of his own trouble. So without considering the danger to his own life, he wanted to take revenge for this man charging so much money.
다 control기 님보성로 다해라 다 가상기님 어서 계속 중간에 카드 컨트롤한다. 되게 갑자기 자에 직디에는 컨트롤이 쭉 가르쳐도 다 주디 셀치에는 컨트롤 갑자기 자야지 리니 엄청 더.
So now with regard to the antidote of anger, as explained before, so there's two ways to oppose the anger. One way is to oppose the anger directly when it arises. So when the anger manifests in one's continuum, one opposes the anger. The other way is to oppose the direct cause of the anger. So by opposing the cause of the anger, one is able to oppose the anger, one is able to overcome the anger.
다 control기 줄이 제디 내가 기타 게 아니 가상 죽슬라고 나신 균댕기 셈데 아니 셈 시대에 봐이나 컨트롤랑 처조 용데 균댕기 셈이 기부 예대버이나 아니 컨트롤랑 데스칼에 가와 용데 어디 숨이디 아니 균댕기 셈이 다 가기 기부진냐에 다시 제거를 뒤송을.
So with regard to the causes of anger, so there are temporary conditions that may give rise to anger, that may give rise to the arisal of anger in one's continuum. But also, as explained before, so if a person is not always happy, if they don't always experience peace of mind and happiness, then they're much more likely to get angry. Whereas if someone is ordinarily or usually happy, is a happy type of person, is peaceful and happy, then anger does not necessarily, or it's much harder for anger, or the anger usually doesn't arise in the continuum of such a person who's usually happy and peaceful.
다 딜레 갈라오레 셈마지바다 셈제치네 편도 요메 섬로땅네 아니 셈마지바데 편도 메바 하고요 토네 딜레 카데 자고 섬바지 페지 용 요공은듯이 이 요나 아니 디토라 섬로땅단도 다다 죽되니 저외 섬로든 디코라 메나 섬담마 시에바이네 디 편도시라메 데요서럽시레.
So a person who, with regard to happiness, and unhappiness, so if one is mentally, one experiences mental unhappiness, if the mind is not happy and one worries, well, one should think whether there's any use of worrying, or as opposed to not worrying. So being unhappy and worrying, as opposed to being happy and not worrying. So someone who can think about this, can consider this effectively, one comes to the conclusion that there's no use to worry and so forth. And this then opposes one's anger, or this opposes the possibility of anger to arise. So this is only for someone who can really think about this, can think of that in a rudimentary kind of way. If one is unable to think along those lines, the usefulness of worry, etc., well, one will not be able to oppose the anger in such a way.
아니 유난히 니 규제다 초월에 막아오 제고에 민도 니 규제다에 맹인지 있는 신고는 된지지 있는 막아오 진 배도요 말이스 어디 책시 송으라.
So it is said in Shantideva's Bodhisattva way of life, when it says, if there is a remedy to a problem, then what is the use to, why should one, there's no need to worry. Whereas if there's no remedy, again, that doesn't make sense. Why would one worry? So this is what it says in this particular verse, like a 4-line verse.
다 딜러니 kasi tabshi 요 매버지 있나 아니 심지진의 변도요 말이스 디지 뒤전에 단단히 니빠라 심지시다 지금 말이 심지진의 변도가 요리스 딜러데 딜러 뒤전에 아마 갈래버래 국버리셔 심지지 신임이 들라이다 다 수고바이 나하고 오면도 건진이 아마게 빠라 국버리셔 심지지 신임이 들라이다 빠라지는 심지진의 변도요 말을 심지진의 국버리래 다 가리다.
So here with regard to, if there's no method, if there's no kind of remedy to a situation, well, what is the use? It's useless to worry, as it says in this particular text. So in the case of Geshe-la's father, he doesn't worry. Geshe-la's father doesn't worry, because he feels there's no point in worrying. It doesn't make any sense to worry. Whereas Geshe-la's mother, she says that his father is stupid because he doesn't even know how to worry. So there's two situations here. One person doesn't know how to worry, and the other person feels there's no point in worrying. So Geshe-la says, I don't know who's right and who's wrong. It's hard to say.
아마기 다 섬지딘 유제와지 신민들라 이게 인기로 하다 고발을 해야 돼. 근데 지금은 다 제와민들라 이게 인기로.
So his mother, when she says he doesn't know how to worry, he probably means he doesn't have enough care. He doesn't care enough. So therefore he doesn't know how to worry. He doesn't know how to care, therefore he doesn't know how to worry. That's probably what his mother means. What his mother means with regard to the father, not worrying.
제산다디 레드 가정님은 기재 중원하신 제와래 제와 유효사들 강의 체험이 선대 용해지 용도 연구여들이 제와래디 디전형 기재입니다. 하게 디 가스고래 강의 체험도 디긴 쿨핀이 매버지 로봇이 얘기 삼로춘이 매나 제와 매버래 마도 엔티디 삼로디 예 아니 샘제디 매나 디 제와 예 샘제 매기 차대로 하다. 다지도야 샘제 마치는 제와 매의 저입니다.
So as we discussed this before, with regard to a caring, kind of kind-hearted, loving kind attitude of loving kindness or care, when another person experiences a problem due to this caring attitude, then we may worry. But it's not necessary that one worries. It doesn't mean that one doesn't care if one doesn't worry. It means one doesn't care if one doesn't take any responsibility to help that person. So that would mean that one doesn't care. witnessing someone suffering, if one then doesn't make an effort, if one doesn't take responsibility to help that person, that would be a sign one doesn't care. It doesn't matter whether one worries about the other person's problems or doesn't. So even if one doesn't worry, if one takes responsibility, one still cares for another person upon them experiencing problems.
Kisi tabshe meba ina pendo khari yore lawa na shin di indu zane pendo me inza nguye nichi di kene tu na ma zesem di susu tuba khari kene di kyangba kana tang nguye nichi kene tu guwa mara ta nguye nichi di chuni yoye mengi ji ina kukudu lanta sema jibro ma do yoye ni me ro ta nguye nichi li yongju yungi ji ina kukudu se pesin che koya jibu yongdang ji yorwa Tila di chikchena manzu di samlo di wei nizu ke lenya laya gomri te gu mero. Di rangshin dagara res. Rangshin di indi ta tabshe yo ma res la. Ke lensha na, dangdu lensha na, di la sem la kange shida ma yo echi.
Also with regard to the fact that there's no remedy to something, if there's no method to avert a certain negative situation, well, then there's really no point, there's no meaning in worrying. So actually when thinking about this, we need to see the reality in that situation, to acknowledge reality in that moment. Because just wishing for something is not enough. If that is not possible, if one's wish does not accord with reality, then just saying, I need this, doesn't help, because one doesn't get what one wants and therefore will be unhappy. So therefore, Vishla says it's important that one sees reality, one sees what is there in reality. Does it make sense? Is there something that one can do? And if there's just no way in doing something, if there's in reality it is ineffective to do anything, well then one is able to let it go. So maybe it's important to become more familiar with what is there in reality, the actual nature of phenomena in the sense of what is there in reality. And then one is able to accept. One is able to accept and doesn't see a situation as a problem. It doesn't become a problem if one is able to accept the actual situation and the situation that is the case in reality.
Tata kanji majiba yongye di susu deba da matimba chigi tone. Ene majiba yongwa. Kogo du la marana matimba rwa. Kogo mindu ten mideba che ene le yongna majiba chadu rwa. Kogo du la di le tunsu na ene kibu che. Kogo mindu la di pa chinsu na ene chalasu na ene kibu che. Deba da wabinezi di tunyongdi kibu che ene matundi majiba chadegi doa sem ki majib seyadi.
So usually we are happy if that which we wish, we are unhappy, we're not happy when that which we wish does not accord with reality. So therefore, if we want something, if there's something we want and we don't get it, we get unhappy. If we do not want something and we get it, we are unhappy. So in that sense here, Geshe-la says that which we don't want, if that which we don't want, we don't get, then we're happy. If that which we need, we get, we're happy. So in that sense, it's always if those two don't match, if those two, one's wish and what one actually gets, or what one doesn't get, if those two don't match, one is unhappy. If they do match, then one is happy. In that sense, it all depends on the situation in reality, the real situation. It depends on reality. So in the sense that which one desires, if that is actually possible in reality and one can get it, that leads to happiness.
Jati inza ta malati kogodu senete maradi majiba leondi ani majiba sele tabshe dila surata cheji diye tabshe jirwa 야수 라에 균이 미도나 고고도스 되고 바람 배워 쓰잖아 말하네 맞지고 개요 말아 다시 니 용초고도 이내 치마딘 것을 표준 시고 말아 마마디마다.
So actually there are two ways to overcome unhappiness with regard to not getting what we want or what we need. So let's say we need something, there's something we need and we're unhappy about not getting it. So one way to overcome that unhappiness would be to try and get the object, to make an effort to go out and make an effort to actually acquire the object or the situation we desire. Or if we cannot get what we wish, the other method would be to overcome the wish for the object, the desire or the wish to acquire the object. If we overcome that, we can also overcome our unhappiness with regard to not getting something. So usually we don't see the letter method as a method. We don't strive towards applying the second method.
제자다 알라보다 나로기 되고 주치던 다 딘지지기 토네 탑시지 제투가 있나 다 띠다 되고 싶어 차로라 가와이네 냠들레 그래 같이 스스로 예대스로 차로라 다 치로기 수팀버제 토네 디지 주베디 아니 갈래하고로 중화라 되고래 미신다라 되고래 뭐 오지를 되고디 먼저 되거든다 요래 딩이 미창만 치로 뭐부 창만 수지 되거든 딩고 요소르지 이네 디용에 맹지로 디외에 다디 가르스나 아니 벤단 남시대스 마디네 세마지고 차용도 같이 롱랑도 차버드 체 춘는 것은 봐 롱랑도 디딱디 쯤딩들라 소소 챙이도 나한테는 최고에 땅이도 나한테는 땅고에 딘지기 소소 되어가시 최고에기 요라 다디라 하자 차체다 선 되어버 유지 당샤나 디레 아니 그 강에 디세레디 레라 차로도 치료디 하자 먹으러 봐 진짜 디다디 자외미 공로 카도를 송레디 베디 단다디 카도를 전에 뒤서로 계시시와라 사실 참아 체마 칸데나 안디 참마로 직각이 되나 까투에요 말했어 디레 아니 단나가면은 고아로 같은 사람이 기간에 뒤 충중지 수수기 강바들 한국 충중지 수수데 강바들 요샤나 가와주는 체마수예요 말했어 다 대화를 손다
Now with regard to the internal desire, if one is able to change the internal desire, everything becomes much more convenient. In other words, the method to removing our problems, that kind of method is far more easy, it's far more convenient. And it gives us some kind of freedom, because we can take it with us, we can take it everywhere we want. If we don't have that wish, this is a much more convenient method to oppose our unhappiness. Whereas on the other hand, if we try to change instead the external, instead of transforming our desire, we try to transform the external in order to get what we want, well, we need to depend on others, on other people. We need to change the external situation. There's so much we need to change with regard to the external. So then there's a sense that everything outside the material world has to adjust according to our own wishes. For instance, with regard to the weather. Some people get very unhappy and even angry when it rains a lot. The thought arises, it should stop to rain now. It's enough rain now, it should stop raining. So here, it seems that one expects the external environment to do exactly what one wants. So to act in a way that is in accordance to one's wishes, to provide that which one wishes for. So one expects that from the environment, from external phenomena. But it would be so much easier if instead of having that expectation, to change one's attachment, one's desire. It would make it much easier in the sense that external phenomena are so many, there are so many external phenomena, so many external things, and it's impossible to adjust all of them with regard to our own wishes. We can adjust this. Our wishes, our desire can be adjusted, or this idea we can apply to one of the verses from Shantideva's Bodhisattva Way of Life, when he talks about, actually in the context of anger, he speaks about this in the context of anger, so saying that in the same way as we cannot cover the entire world with leather, in order not to be able to experience the pebbles and thorns, etc., instead we could just cover our feet well, in the ancient times it was leather, nowadays it'll be rubber. So if we just cover our feet with rubber or with leather, then we won't feel the thorns around us. So we can apply that verse, which is usually used to explain anger or the antidotes to anger. Here we can apply this to as an antidote to the desire. So to adjust ourselves as opposed to adjusting or trying to change the external environment.
Tadi 파트인 답제의 진행 되게 나가는 신 게임 모듈을 떼고 그 레카가 치체 지디 파트인 답장장 진행 수제 되고 저게 샤샤나 그 레카고 지가르스나 되버디 체비도 체지유나 안에 코치 튼답지 제다 직송해 줘라 그거 잘은 야 동라도 봄라도 알림 야 봄라서는 다 직송 축제지 쟁기리 야 봄축게 지시모 디다디 파 되고 그런다 띵기 되나
So then, if with regard to trying to change the external, so there are many different external factors, a lot of factors, a lot of conditions that need to be changed. So that is very difficult. On top of that, not only is it very hard to adjust the external, other people, of the environment, etc., according to our own wishes, not only is that very difficult, but also our desire knows no limit. It is very difficult to satisfy our desire because there's no limit as to what it wishes for. So initially, if one wishes for 100 rupees, well, one gets 100. But then after 100, one wants 1,000. And then one wishes for 100,000. And maybe for a short moment, then there's a thought of satisfaction. One feels satisfied. But thereafter, one wishes for 1,000,000. One wishes for 1,000,000 rupees. So in that way, there's really no limit. There's no limit to what our desire wishes for, which is an extra problem or a second problem. So actually, we got used to, or we got addicted to our desire. Our desire is like some kind of addiction. So whatever our desire tells us, we just go, yes, okay, yes, okay, yes, okay. So basically, our desires are like some kind of bad person. A bad person who we have fallen for, in the sense, who we're addicted to now, and whose every whim we are trying to satisfy.
마신이 단다 시셔죠 같이 배치나 요래 같이 다 디가나 말아서 따로 팅머팅가서 야슈를 전행체가
So what Vijayana explains here in this context of desire and so forth, some of what he explains can be found in the scriptures, and some of what he explains is according to his own ideas, and this can be discussed later on. Vijayana says we can discuss this at a later point.
삼번나신 되번나신 참을 연구위에 따와디 기회하는 노샤 지금 디더 카데자에서 뭐는 말은 되번나신 용과에 인지미지 용과에 개민도 왔어 삼번이나 다른 게때 슈마 차로면서
So basically, we are addicted with regard to our desire, and this addiction of this feeling, it has to come exactly how we want. So this addiction is a mistaken kind of attitude. So wishing to acquire exactly what we wish, that is based on a mistaken attitude. So therefore, as an opposing force to this desire, to think that it is not necessary. So it's not necessary to gate this phenomenon. This does not make sense, or it's not necessary to get the object. that in itself helps a little bit to reduce the desire or to reduce the force of this particular mind.
This Parasamlo Dio Inza, in Pinja and Lagui, which you do the Kashi, Hajang Chambuchi. That's more than Namsa, Kachis. Vegeta Debatin, Jingitsewachi Gizera, Nature and Diaomaris. Some the Che, some the Des Muchu, Gang Chechu, and Digi Karichagasana, to make it down to Legi, Mara Tebanashi, somewhat Juque, that Chukudu Segi, the Chumberchin. 당들이 니버디 챕터 그랬어. 강에 동네 니버디. 디 디차루도스 갈수 그래. 무슨 수부 있나? 가서 나서는 거 니버지기 쉐이도 이면 시스템을 어생기 이면 시스템 차루도스. 동네 테스트 디체나 타보차. 근데 잡부지기다는 예산을 많이 하나도 그 차상도 차 근데 제시하는 수부 배고도 차루라. 진짜 인지미 수부를 내가 보고도 내가 주는 말하는 내가 구유제네 인기도 리제려고 할 때 같이 내가 그 말마다 도도시나 제모세다 삼로다 민다다지 삼당다다 민다다 시험마다 제모세네 저 리제세네 저 수고를 내가 그거 알아 매나 디냠도도 이미 시스템 디나신 건설에 강에 때 체대나 아니 그 동맹이 니버디 카페자에게 니버디 테스트 시대에 제만에 강에 때 채워 있는 게 디 공시디 주는 내가 차원들 강에 최종 제체와이네 디차든 지선다 파마기 부글 제샤와이나 아마 같이 이내 다 파마 부년도 대퇴해요 말아 넌 친구도 그런 미세지 깨버려 그러나 등에 동들에 카디자에게 생기 떠도 주는 내와이나 아니 전부 자리 파마 내가 근삼되는 양해로 하다
So Geshe-la says in his own opinion with regard to some of his relatives, so some of his relatives or siblings, etc., so they have small children, and oftentimes whatever the child wants, the relatives would give the child. And so when they cry, so right away they pick up the child and try to console it. So Geshe-la is saying, actually he doesn't feel that this is a good idea, and he tells his relatives that sometimes it's not a good idea to always go according to the wishes of the child. So for the parents, it is a sign of their caring, of their love for the child. But he says, Geshe-la says, sometimes let the child cry. Because if one always does, whatever the child wants, if one acts always according to the wishes of the child, well then it's very difficult for the child, whenever it experiences problems, to actually bear those problems. Whereas on the other hand, when it has to experience problems, it learns to reduce one's own desire, its own desire, and learns to bear the situation, learns to face it effectively. So in that way, Geshe-la says, we talk about a physical immune system. So there's a way of strengthening one's physical immune system. But here in this case, this will serve to improve or to strengthen one's mental immune system, to be more immune to problems and to difficulties by sometimes experiencing problems. So to allow a child to experience and face difficulties to strengthen its immune system, its mental immune system. If, for instance, Gemma says, like, let's say you're in bed all day long and people bring you food and they wash you and they bring everything that you need, it's really bad for us because we're not moving around. It's really bad for the body. So in that way, actually making someone work, making someone move, it becomes like some kind of exercise. One needs to exercise the body. So no matter what one calls it, whatever label one applies, whether one says you put the person to work, or you allow the person, or you give the person the opportunity to exercise, whether it's work or exercise, that is just a label. But the point is, one moves around, one moves, one is active, and that is good for the body. So here, similarly, with regard to problems and difficulties, these strengthen the mental immune system. So the mental immune system gets strengthened, and so in that way, if problems arise, one is more prepared to face those problems. While on the other hand, if there's no familiarity with problems and difficulties, it's very difficult to even bear small problems, even bear small sufferings. So in that way, it is important to strengthen one's mental immune system. And with regard to parents, well, parents, if they always give in to the child, if they always give to the child what the child needs, well, they will not always be around. At some point, the children will not be with their parents. And then children may face a lot of problems as a result of having always had their wishes fulfilled.
디 모이니지 레도 레미도다 게시 모이니지 이나 아니 삼당다 잡디 디 용초서로 미카시기디 수부다 주다나 아니 수부 팽기여 신행인도 저기 아니 내가 치드니까 가시에다미 배샤다 근데 지금 맞이라 제로 가시 딘디 개면에 지기도 내가 당들래 디나 신에니 다다 증에 장인도 저기 뭐보다 두샤디디 지디 까트에 된다라 배 쉬니 베디 지기도 딘내 기고 말어 다 때때 쉬어야지 뭐보다 더 원해라 수치부 쉬어야 이네디 고백이 미버들 내치도 지거라 진짜 다 디나신 되긴 지도 문에이나 강에 체험도 미기 그보다도 다 이미스 좀 이렇게 당겨 나기 이미스 좀 이렇게 당겨서 가운데 당들 해셔나 다 기부래 기부 이만하신 다 이미스 좀 이렇게 좋아이나 뭐보다 강에 디데 채워 이네 강 시다기 강에 마요에 차로로 그때 정도 되대요.
So if this is true in reality, so when one checks this is true or not in reality, so then with regard to coming to the conclusion that this is in accordance with reality, well, for instance, some people, they're very active physically. They move around their body, they're very physically active because and then this kind of activity keeps them healthy, keeps them well. So some have to do this for money, of course, have to move around to make enough money. But those who do not need to move around, be active, work, etc. for money, well, they may do so in order just to keep healthy. And so, likewise, there are some people, some fighters who engage in these kind of martial arts, etc. So they make their body very hard. They harden their body. They actually train themselves, hitting their own arms, etc. So that then later on, when they actually face someone in a fight, they will not experience the pain. So Geshe-la was hitting his own arm while he was saying that as a part of one's training, one hardens the body such that one is able to face the blows by another person. So this is in the case of the physical, in a physical situation with regard to the mental reality here. So with regard to the mental immune system, one will be happier. One will be happier because small problems will not be able to affect one, since one's mental immune system has been strengthened. And even when there are greater problems that arise, one's mental immune system gets even more strengthened, and in that way it protects the mind. So this is a kind of training, experiencing problems, experiencing difficulties. They provide some kind of training to strengthen the mind and to strengthen the immune system, the mental immune system, being able to bear problems and difficulties easily and experience more happiness.
제상다 기마집 세디 심기 마집 세디 치료기 견조 많이 뭐지 농로기 섬도 당당다 저거여거든 얘들이 뭐야 무슨 처벌 디체나 아니 섬도의 주시 당기 세기 되열들이 뭐라 다 심기 마집디 농로소서 섬도 당마당다 주도 매버지 치료 견장장 디치 섬도 코데나 아니 심기고 용에 탑시데 치료랑의 체 견장디가 교주가 얘들이 뭐 처벌도.
So then, with respect to first to being happy or not happy, so first one needs to check one's own attitude. So does happiness come in dependence on one's own attitude, or with regard to external phenomena? So usually we identify happiness as coming from the outside, instead of identifying happiness as coming mainly from one's personal attitude. There's a sense it comes from the outside. Then we need to adjust. We need to adjust the external in order to acquire happiness. So it's important to first understand that if it were only the outside, one would have to change everything around oneself. So one would have to adjust everything. Whereas in the case of it being merely one's attitude, all one needs to do is adjust one's attitude.
Das semki machiv sedi chi kin zo ma yin bachin ne nang lo gi sam da sa zo res ta di tin de la ne ti sare ta da di pe chi do go jing go jung ga go pe shor ne ta gu sho mo chi ta de ma su ri se sa je de shor re o di de ga ta kham ma kyo go che ta di nang lo le chi yu sare 미지 그 강보다 하장이 좁아 있어요. 아니 뭐지 차오시 뭐지 땅. 다 차와 땅 되지네. 아니 신다 강보다 야가도 줄래. 그냥 다 코다 티베트에 다 베데 칼렉시오 체위기를 했었네. 로바 같이 다가 친이서. 다가 저기 다 그 티베트가 어서는 겨라. 아니 덴디디 기도다 강보다 남주 소리 되로 기도죠. 이거는 간절로 많이 해. 니도 싶고 간절하게 많이 감바치도 비문도 스테이라 감바치도 지가샤 아니 쉬잖아 나 진짜 거짓말이야 도보도 다 코베가기 쉬울 테니 코베 너 진짜 거짓말인데 되셔서
So with regard to the fact that actually our happiness, being happy or not, mainly depends on our internal attitude. It's mainly a matter of attitude. So to give an example of this, in 1959, Tibet lost its freedom, and many of the monks, they came to India and they stayed in Mussoorie, in a place called Mussoorie. And where the monks stayed, the houses there were very, very poor. So at that time, one monk, he was living in a particularly poor house, in a very run-down kind of house. So the other houses looked pretty, they were pretty run-down themselves, but he lived in one of the worst housings, or the worst houses. So at some point it rained very strongly. And so in all the houses the rain was dripping, it was dripping through the roof. And the friends of this particular monk who lived in the most rundown house, they were worried about him. They were thinking, oh, in our place it's raining a lot, so we're getting wet. But in his place it must be a lot worse. So they went over to check how he was doing in this particular building. And so they found him lying on the floor, facing upwards, with his legs pulled inwards, one leg over the other, an umbrella over him so that he didn't get wet, and he was whistling happily. He was whistling a tune as he was lying there very happily. So his friends were very concerned, but they found him lying there, not really getting wet and being happy.
Yeah,
if it were Geshe-la's mother, if she had seen this monk, she would have said, so stupid, he's happy, so stupid.
Antiboy sumshi jagido, anchik the hayon disse, chik the hayon chewa disse, chik the mog disse, chik the poba disse. A game it all take the Ding dong.
So this story Geshe-la found very beneficial. He found this very helpful in the sense of benefiting, helping his mind. The fact that happiness just comes from, or suffering and not being happy and being unhappy merely comes from the mind, or mainly comes from the mind. So this was beneficial because he heard this story at the time when he was down in Dripal-Moseling, when he was in the monastery, and at that time the accommodation for the monks were very poor. So there was only like a thin kind of tin sheet that separated the buildings and that served as a roof. And when it rained, it dripped in. The rain came through the roof. So there were 3 or 4 places where the rain came through. So in those 4 places, he put a smaller pot and a bigger pot and a cup and a bowl. And so as it was dripping, it made this sound, ding, 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 ding. So he just enjoyed the sound, this kind of melodious sound of the rain dripping in the pots and the cup and so forth.
지산다 삼로 동초 라야디나 덴젤기 삼로 슬라로와 정원을 미치티르 칙비지 제용도 되다디 인세 초용네 삼로 땅불에 그 숨다 강에 가르치면 뒤집을 따마 되어지 이 초용네 삼로 땅나 아니 강에디 시라디 저거 말했어.
So with regard to the attitude one adopts in a certain situation, so that relates to dependent arising. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama usually explains it, he explains it to think from all directions. The way His Holiness expresses it, it's like one should reflect upon a situation from all directions. In other words, not just focus in on the problem, not just focus in on the difficulty, but instead look left and right. So have a vaster kind of attitude or a vaster perspective with regard to a specific situation, without merely focusing on a particular problem.
다 삼로 땅땅의 들어요리세 윤진지 된데 용서래 배는 미신다라 파다 뒤에 된데 용구도 그래서 그래 가시에다 땅가랑 외수디 안주 고아디 아니 로저야 보여버체 저버데스 두셔야 되게 다 무슨 것이면 나도 다른 미디나 아니 코로나 마강인지기 같이기도 세나 간들라기도 세나 로저도 어서 여기 저버 두자레스 되게다 코로나 강이미디 간들라기도 세나 저버데스 두자요 때 배셔배 아울로 좀 배야고 왔다스래도 니가 너 찍지버렸다. 찍게를 내도 술라 해지 개발해. 다 가르에서는 찍디기 삼덕이 아니 크릭 주방이 뭐디기 크릭 로종의 값이다. 로종의 민노버 쓰셔야다. 아니 강행디기 콜로종 야고 요버디기 키제 그 주방이 뭐디 바깥에 민노버 쓰셔야다. 저 삼당당 디 강에다 디데온데 수술을 기비 차요래. 아니 도비 차요래. 자시 뭐 보요래. 차시 가실 때네 강에 요래 차시 가실 때네 아니 되어 요래 지사다 삼당당지기 디치네 동해디 키제 기부들 바까샤나 슬기네샤나 강에 가도 도샤로 기비 삼로디 키제 동해디 가나 바까샤나 슬기네로나 야 동해디 슬기네로 디디 겨울이 있어야 something.
So with regard to the way of one's attitude being most important, well then there's a way in which one can look at a situation. So with regard to some people looking at a situation, they perceive this, and another person perceiving something slightly differently. So this is with regard here in particular, again, as an example of something he himself heard. There's someone he knows. There's a monk, a particular monk, who's very good in his studies, but he sometimes displays bad behavior. And an acquaintance of Geshe-la's, he once said, he remarked on this person. He said, "Well, his study is not too bad, but he has really bad behavior." And then another person remarking again with regard to that same person, well, he behaves a little badly, but he's really good in his studies. So actually the words are the same. The words are the same, saying that this person displays negative behavior but is very good in his studies. But the sequence is reversed. So one mentions early on, first mentions the study, but then the bad behavior, and the other person vice versa. So in the first case, by first mentioning the study, but then mentioning the fact that this person displays a lot of bad behavior. So by saying he has bad behavior, as making that the second statement, one covers the earlier kind of positive quality. Whereas in the other case is the other way around. By saying that he has negative behavior but is really good in his studies, in that way one basically covers the fact that, or the fact that the person doesn't have good behavior is not as obvious to the person listening to this remark. So here, likewise, with regard to problems, from the point of view of a problem, when we have a problem, there's also something positive there. So there are also situations that make us happy. There are positive aspects, or aspects that make us happy, and aspects that cause us to suffer. And it's just a way of how we go about them. If we stress the fact that we have a problem, though there are some situations that make us happy, but we stress the fact that we're unhappy. In that moment, we cover that which is positive about our situation, and in fact, and then the negative situation outshines our situation. Whereas the other way around, if we stress more the fact that we're happy, if we stress that more, then the fact that we experience problems gets covered. And the positive situation outshines, or the positive situation outshines the suffering.
제가 다 수고 대보연의 번조 시다 명인지나 수고대 대보연의 다 번조 춘임에 내리세 마기고 간 거죠. 다 번조 요마르데 이네 수고 대타지 내리양 심기고 간 출레이다. 근데 지금 지기하는데 성동세 지기 마기고 간 도를 지기 쇼출레이다.
So, for example, a person who's very healthy. I have a really healthy body, but I don't really have any wealth. Or they may say, well, I have no wealth, but I'm very happy. So here it's just they say the same thing basically, but by way of how they think about it, how they express, how they make these two statements. In one case, one stresses the positive aspect. In one case, one stresses the negative aspect. So initially, the first statement, one stresses the negative situation, whereas in the other case, one stresses the positive aspect.
미치게 쇼베다 내가 줘야 된다라. 아니 모저나는 주니. 모저 땅로지디 모저기 뒤인들라. 지 그라 리디치 도와. 현재의 가리나서는 마치로 되지. 라바창로지디 도버지산에. 동자슈르디라. 동자슈디 밤는 신충충지리다. 이 계제 내가차 맹하게 아니 강바티 두셔지네. 강바제 오케이. 강바제 비주네 버차. 제만 미디 갈래 되세나. 답이야니 니 라바 말레레스. 신가시사레스. 또 되고 두세. 다 섬동처럼 다 강바제 배사서는 강에 쉬시라. 다요 거라 섬당다지기 말이래입니다. 또 되고 두세요.
So there was one
근데 답답하면 즉 그것이 밖에 통해. 리디지.
So there's a story of a man who one morning when he went to work, he took a car in order to get to work, and as he was about to drive off, he saw this pipe in front of the car. So he went out of the car, he got out of the car, he looked at this object like a pipe, and he realized it was a pipe bomb, so he kicked it away. And the pipe bomb exploded, and the man was injured. He was injured so badly that his leg had to be amputated. But then later on, he felt very lucky. He said, I was very lucky that I kicked it away, and so that therefore my leg got blown off. Because if instead I picked it up, if I picked up the object and actually held it, then it would have exploded in my hand, it would have killed me. So he felt very lucky that instead of the pipe bomb killing him, it only tore off, it only blew off his leg.
Tenashin chumdende shubi kala ane kilongchi lumba tukcha chi yusare zubu mi shiga zubu yusagi lumba chi hotel ta tuku yis gomba shire gomba shire chumdende ki ane ta karsugore lumba di tes ta zubu ta ane yudu parche yuwa niga yores cheza ane la nye kina la tiwa tangi tiwa tangi tena tata tena ane kira tona tigires Tiwa kartaan desana, pagi choni mitizu chana la xie tang tende chena, an karchi ges. Nyeda matangwa de tab ya tenki his, ya bari tenki his. Ane nyeda tang suna karchi ges, ma seba de ya bari tenki his. Se suna karchi ges, ta di men chi samlo de yang che dan teni re. Ta karchi o tende chini sam tang da xie ne, ane xine, ta chana parchi yogu ma chana doi shas.
So at the time of the Buddha, when the Buddha was around, there was a bhikkhu who came from a place where people behaved very badly, where people behaved in a very rude fashion. And at some point this bhikkhu, he wanted to return to his home country, and he went to the Buddha to take leave. But the Buddha said to him, well, you may experience problems, you may experience obstacles if you return to this particular place. So I would like to ask you some questions, and then, independent on your response, I will decide whether I let you go or not. And so he first asked him, if you go to this place, if once you reach there, the people there will scold you, what are you going to do? And so the bhikkhu responded, well, I'd be happy that they don't beat me up. And then the Buddha said, well, what would you do if they beat you up? And the bhikkhu responded, I'd be happy that they don't kill me. So anyway, the story continues, and then it continues. The response he then gives is in connection to the Dharma. So anyway, the point is here that the Buddha, because he responded in the way in which he did, the Buddha therefore gave him permission to go back to his home country, saying, you will not experience any obstacles.
Tati chidu chane kije tuzu ta mi tsame shin de rubuji de re. Ta wana kharchi gorsana tsar chik ninji samdo tang di chigi pento kwa mar. Tati gomgu war, tati di tuta di. Tati kharre sena pena tati ducha kie, kondro kie, tuzu ta shukchimbo kie tuzu gomni kie kwa. Tsumi ji yang sui ta, ane shukchimbo kie kwa. Sama jiwa kadu des yongre tuzu ta chegi kingi yungure de. Dengi simdi majiwa chaya di gomner ye jesum ya diye re masus di yana yang de samdang sha de ni ko dengi simdi majiwa charo ta di dokchogi ani tsujo di bage sim gibu suye di ta gomdang di shimi tode ani di susu shin de yo tagaro chobi jeje ani gomgo war mashita tanda di mozui na bacha la ro yang gomdi ane bacha di tubu chadro di ane kine gyundengi sendela pake gyurwa teyechi ane tanda nima di tsindu zondo chudi leba tsa sawa kigo laydo rwa miksi tangin tuzo yang tangsha di barachi tsa sawa kiyechi tsa di kiyesa di ane semshira tingo mara gozu shana ane kwaro pardo di soro chigi gazu gomshi layagi tsue di la pake tsa sawa kiyeni chisa ta di semkiwi chode tsar chini kyangya mayi maji yang ne yang du gomsha di kalil tsa sawa kyeche tsa sawa kye tsa suna ane inji menji samlo di tete ko rakshingi rangi ngangi ko kibuka ne te di yongde yorwada.
So this is something we actually all know, all of us know. So, but this situation, this expedition Geshe-la just gave, we need to reflect on this, we need to contemplate this again and again, not just once, not just twice, but again and again. And in that way, familiarize ourselves with the meaning of the explanation Geshe-la just gave. So actually, with regard to desire or with regard to anger, they arise repeatedly due to our familiarity with these states of mind. So this is what we need to overcome. We need to overcome our familiarity with those. And with regard to being unhappy, so unhappiness leading to anger, for instance. So sometimes there are some external small conditions, small factors that lead to our unhappiness. But actually, if we're always unhappy, there's this continuous unhappiness which arises in our continuum by thinking this didn't work out and that didn't work out and this didn't work out. So again and again, familiarize ourselves with the negative, with negative situations, etc., and therefore always feel unhappy. But if we think of the opposite, if we make ourselves, if we accustom ourselves, or we make ourselves familiar with the opposite, this is the way to then meditate. This is the way to familiarize our mind here. So to organize all the different ideas, all the different reasonings that were presented, to organize them, and then familiarize ourselves with them again and again, repeatedly. So we usually say, from a Buddhist point of view, we talk about leaving imprints. Familiarizing ourselves means we leave imprints. Now, in the scientific in the conferences, like the scientists, the kind of conferences, Mind in Life, etc. So when the scientists come together, what they explain that every time we familiarize ourselves, when we do an action again and again, new neurons develop in our brain. They make new connections in our brain. So Geshe-la said that new neurons grow, and that this is then, once these new connections are being made, then by just starting the activity, it becomes very easy because of that new connection. Therefore, whatever we even, any kind of activity that we're now familiar with, by merely starting it, it's very easy to proceed in that particular way. So therefore, we slowly start making new connections in our brain, developing new neurons, developing new connections, and in that way, our behavior becomes natural. We familiarize our mind with a certain way of thinking that creates new connections, and it becomes natural to us, becomes very easy and natural.
The Chedama Jenny Gomdang, Pejana, the Sevu Mara, Digi Dinitsu Lencho Seretenica, Tata Dichigore, the Jorg Corcomdu, any Cheddar Jenny, Comu Duzane, Talaki, Jorachus in Dizije, any Chit, then Yawa Yita Dindro, any Omo Matsawa, that Utabo Dindiligena, Chichitumares, Ditishi Jam, a Jatanu Conduzane. 다 디리나 타마타다 냐월 마제디 야부 중도와 이다나 마제디 야부 중도와 오보마 상와 마차에디 야부 중도와 디마 상의 땅들이 디리 공민들이 디리 상의 마카시 땅들이 가라나 연구도스 라기도 그래서 디리버디 추페 저다 최다 만들어리네 수소의 메디비 강에 미신다 체대만 보여요 중시만 보여요 디리가 조딘게 고추 장가전에서 나라 강에 디에미도 나라 강에 디에미도 디니민도 답야세 답디 차치기를 거라 야야 고면데 바라지 김당문에라 내요야지 디나신다 소소라 팅긴 상대와만 보지요래 팅이 딘디치니도 답야세디 에야 다가랑 거라 디 야야야요 검샤디 아니 균등이 있으면 기부 차줘야 되는 용사래
So with regard to the explanation that was given so far, and also the explanation that doesn't connect to, so this being like an explanation that doesn't connect to the Buddha Dharma, directly direct to it. So this meditation, this way of meditating, you don't find in the scripture. So any kind of explanation that doesn't directly connect to the Buddha Dharma, you don't find in the scripture. But when you talk about the Buddha Dharma in connection to that, so when you, for example, meditate on the freedoms and leisures, the different kind of freedoms and leisure with regard to the precious human rebirth. So when we talk about the 10 types of leisures, so the 10 types of opportunities In other words, one is not reborn in the hell realm, one is not reborn as in the preta realm, one is not reborn in the animal realm, one is not reborn in the country, one is not reborn with a body that lacks the sense faculties, and so forth. So in that way, by thinking about this, oh, how wonderful, I'm not reborn in the hell realm, I'm not reborn in the preta realm, I'm not reborn in the animal realm, I have all my sense faculties, and so forth. So when one repeatedly reflects on this, if one repeatedly contemplates that, there's a feeling of happiness, of great joy arising in one's continuum. So likewise here, without connecting it to the hell realms, etc., if one just thinks without connecting it to the Buddha Dharma specifically, one can also think, oh, this situation, it could have happened, but it didn't happen to me. This situation, it could have happened, but it didn't happen to me. And this didn't happen, and this didn't happen. So 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. So different kind of examples of unfortunate situations that could potentially arise, but that didn't arise for us, that didn't occur in our case. So thinking, how wonderful, I don't have this problem, I don't have this difficulties, etc. So in that way, one really gets happy. One is really happy that one has so many conditions, there's so many positive, there's so many conducive conditions that we experience. And to think about them, this conducive condition I have, this conducive condition I have, and to reflect upon them again and again. And in that way, by thinking in that way, one realizes how fortunate one is and how happy one should actually be. So in the sense that one appreciates one's own good fortune.
아니 제자디 가시고래 가져서가 공단기 계제 시용도 전에 리보만 보다데 다가나시 지버지 경제 그 튠다 튠점수에 계시 공주 지금을 깨요나 큰진을 깨요나 뭐 튠다 니머지의 숨시 든지 뒤지서야지 니머 가시에 겁나 아시네 그거 대루와 잡진이지 뒤제와 생기다 감사평발.
So with regard to earlier, also Geshe-la spoke some days ago, he spoke about how to practice patience. So there were different reasonings Geshe-la presented, gave different reasonings, logical reasonings for why when we should be patient, we should not react with anger. And so then we should make time, like a session, a meditative session, and then we should make time from the point of view of the sessions, like the in-between period. And then for 3 or 4 days, sit in a meditative session and familiarize ourselves with the different kind of reasonings. And then come out of this during the sessions in between, and then again go into a session and so forth. So if one does this for 3 or 4 days, there will be some change. One's mind will actually transform and change. And such a change cannot take place immediately by just thinking about this once. So one needs to spend some time to reflect on this.
니와 춘주가라 디 미든지 데스 dobchewa 된지 투지 당아 체온데 그래서 충화의 슈던 거 말아 다 친구 차능에 레볼로 세해든지 섬을 승내 얘기들이나 제목 파 레볼로 세 섬들이 되게 전주심 진짜되니 there's pains 레볼로 세 섬들이 다 용문다.
So Geshe-la says when he was smaller, and at times when people who were taller were bigger than him, when they bullied him, there was a sense, one day when I'm stronger, I will retaliate, I will pay them back. So he felt he had this kind of this wish to retaliate every time he got bullied. But then once he reached, in his studies, he reached the class on bodhicitta, then this thought he wanted to retaliate weakened. It no longer really arose strongly. It got weakened. So after 20 or 30 years, there's no longer the thought he wants to retaliate. Do you think I'm probably have familiarized with patience, haven't I? No, it's not because of more patience. There's no one who wants to bully him. No one left to bully him.
Shurku Nishu Yen de Basila, Michigi Tes, Sarkasheji, Nekes, and Ding Hamago to the Semna Yadin, sir. And Nimajima de Sagan Chatua to the Langal Turva, Tarimbo and to the Cold Till Tony Drummond. But don't put Tony Drummond and Pa Nishuji Yugi solution, Pa John Drummond in the child.
When Geshe-la was around 19 or 20 years old, at that time there was someone who harmed him, someone who inflicted some harm on him. And so, without really being aware of it, Geshe-la says he held a grudge. He was unhappy, he was resentful with regard to this person. So one day when he was on his way to go to a restaurant, he saw this person approaching him, coming closer. And so he didn't want to meet this person. He didn't want this person to come closer. It was like some kind of harm approaching him. And so therefore he took a detour in order not to have to meet that person on the road.
Jinju Sube Yudima Lo, Dilanone River, Rasana Pemba Kashish to Digidice, Des Pemba Kashish to Digidi Chodice, and a river Pemba Digidi La Samata, all the Pemba Digidi Dice La Samatance, Sugar Kamachaman, you should Kamachaman, you should Kodakamachaman, you should do some time. Didaji is Chilla, Raja Tus, the meeting. To do Zane. 그것도 저토고도 깨싱이 좋으면도
So then, after that encounter, after that situation, Geshe-la took there was Bodhisattva way of life, and in particular the chapter on patience. He read the chapter on patience, and those verses that he found most effective, he wrote out. He kind of organized. And then started thinking about them. So first he thought about the verses he found most effective, or those words he found most effective. Then he reflected upon those words he found medium kind of effective, and then the ones he found least effective. And in that way, in the morning he spent 15 to 20 minutes meditating, contemplating. Then in the afternoon another 15 to 20 minutes, and in the evening another 15 to 20 minutes. And about a week later of having done this kind of practice, having done this meditation, he again met that person. But this time he didn't want to run away. He couldn't talk to this person. He didn't want to talk to him. But he didn't run away. He didn't take a detour. He was able to face it without wanting to speak to him.
Kejeshi, Tishidele, Kawapege. Kejeshi was in a sentiwajil, Natiti, Tostuvajil, the Yomudo, Kejeshi.
So some days later, after having continued with this kind of meditation, he again met this person. He again met him, but this time he spoke to him. So he said to Shidele, "Where are you going?" and spoke a few words. But there was a little bit like a hurt in his heart. There was some hurt. So that was still present, although he spoke to him. So he spoke to this person, but there was still some hurt left in his mind or in his heart.
직전에 된대지버 예시 디디 니만인가 배제가 삼로도 슈침고 내가 지거라 디디도 제외 삼로를 연 니버지 유지와 된대기 편도 채와의 용식이로 간들이야 그 무튼 디제나 배제도 자네 차에도.
So then some days later again he met this person, and this time he spoke to this person and there was no more hurt left in his heart. So instead there was this sense of lightness, there was this sense of feeling really well, and when the person passed him after he's gone, he felt so happy. It felt as if some kind of disease, some kind of illness had finally gotten better. He had finally been cured of some kind of disease. So therefore, here it's through this continuous kind of practice, of course also reading the scriptures, studying the scriptures. It holds some kind of capacity, some kind of potential. But whatever it is, so it is through this familiarity, familiarizing himself over some time, repeating or repeatedly accustoming his mind with these kind of reasonings, that the anger can totally go, and it can be totally eliminated or totally be overcome.
Tene ta kazale de sembaji bata ta kondo sae de zawa ta dushala tubares ta dishinguwa.
So then, as explained yesterday, the reason for anger, to arise, it is mainly attachment or desire. It is mainly due to attachment and desire that anger arises.
That the kasivare jahana le yore, bahiti bala yore, kumai basta dinna tradi kumaku baguta to fa che fa todre. Stat beshalu segi bagudi ta che kuma kidona ta kondo sagire sembaji bache di yongoro. Karchini resina bagudilas beshadilas sen chade yaro. Zawati tu. Il chabadi mena kidone ta maji yongoye ta kondo sagwe yongan.
So, for instance, in India and also in Nepal, when you go by bus, there are a lot of pickpockets. So they take your wallet, they steal your wallet, and take off with your wallet, take out the money and take off with them. So as a result of having a pickpocket steal one's purse, one gets angry, one gets unhappy. So why does one get unhappy? Why does one get angry? Because there's attachment to the money. So the mind is attached to the money. If there were no attachment to the money, we wouldn't care if someone took away the money. If there were no attachment to the wallet, to the money, we wouldn't care if someone took it away. So this is a sign of attachment to the money. This is a sign of that we feel unhappy or we get angry as a sign of having attachment.
Tati tindere nima ta bene tarmendo chisu ta toyamenda nabdu chiye tingsa ino ruma yorwa or ruma so to nambu guse shi gi yore chabo to yore to chi de bogu to yore chesanta kena di bogu di nabdu chiye di tana lu ni kito pasna ya to changa tabji kumagi di telo bogu re ani di and then bus to straw the command the puzzle in the Pagudi Tenji. And Kendi, that cost Chapa May in the Condo Sangma, Semajo Yamar, Da Days, Kajinji, and called Cashedo, Cashedo the Diora,
So, sometimes, like with regard to someone who doesn't have attachment, so for example, some monks, when they blow their noses, so nowadays you have like a handkerchief, but in the old day you have this really thick wool, like a woolen cloth, like a squared woolen piece of cloth, and you would use that to blow your nose, and then you fold it in the middle, and you put it in your pocket, and it looks like a purse. So one monk, he was taking a bus, and he had this piece of wool, this thick piece of wool, folded in the middle, in his pocket. And a pickpocket took out this as it was very crowded. It was like getting on the bus. It was very crowded. So a pickpocket stole this piece of cloth, and as the bus drove off, the thief looked at him and waved the piece of cloth like very happily. Look, I got your wallet. And then the monk was watching him, and then the thief looked inside and saw the mucus. And then the monk waved.
제상다 디지두자네 아니 되차 유명이 토네 아니 디용두자네 세마지버데 셀레라 다 되차디 세토나 세마지버데 세토고.
So then with regard to having desire or not having desire, so one's unhappiness can be overcome by overcoming the desires.
다 되차 셀레라 다 다나 라바 토니 기제셰바이나 다디 번조르라 차바요레 담년자라 차바요레 류라 차바요레 니닌센라 차바요레 다 딘제기 토네다 되차디 제용디자네 되차디 네다 당보스네면도 라바 토네 시나 다 파기 윤덴디 토네 되버디 지고 알바 선 되버디 메바 소열다 코이 콜다 괜다나 아니 되버디 메바 차루로 어디래 되버주지 당시에 디디르다.
So with regard to extinguishing or removing attachment, well, attachment can be with regard to wealth and possessions. So we can be attached to wealth and possessions. We can be attached to fame and reputation, attached to the body, attached to relatives and friends. So there are several different objects that the mind grows attached to. And in order to overcome attachment, so in a coarse kind of way, a coarse way in which one can overcome, that is, eliminate one's attachment, so the way it actually arises, so in order to overcome it, one needs to think of the faults of an object, because the reason for attachment arising is that we see the good qualities of something. Seeing the good qualities of a phenomenon, therefore we grow attached to it. So therefore, to overcome the attachment to the object, we should therefore focus on, we should view the negative qualities, the faults that a specific object has, and in that way we are able to transform the attachment, we are able to overcome it.
진짜 디게디라 아니 윤댕이 차지에 팬비 차지에 요바체 네비 차지에 요바체 디게디 엔 차상시에나 아니 고구민도 젠디 네비 차디 상다 로아 아니 고구민도 젠루로 고구도 다디 팬도 요바지이나 용 수술 용에 요바지다 팬도 요바지나 윤댕이 차디 상다 고도 섬디 젠루로 다디 교체 당당디 디차루로.
So in reality, if we want to reflect upon the faults of an object, so in reality the object needs to have faults and it needs to have good qualities. Because if it doesn't have those, then it's difficult to reflect upon those. So here we think of something that has qualities and that also have, so in one way it benefits, so therefore we talk about good qualities, and then it also has an aspect of harming, so we talk about it being negative. So having those two, we need to know those two aspects of a phenomenon, the beneficial aspect and the harmful aspect. So then when we in order to overcome our sense of needing it, so to not need the object, to not have the sense to need the object, we need to reflect upon the harmful aspects. And then in order to adopt the object, in order to utilize it, we need to reflect upon its beneficial aspects. So in that way one adjusts the mind.
다 디제데 아니 최다 제니 삼당바이나 슈치무시고 삼다예요. 추기다 주다 제니. 이 최다 주다 마질바이네 테스테스 삼다에 배치 용그래.
So here one can reflect in connection with the view of Dharma, which is very effective, highly effective. But even if one thinks about this without connecting it to the view of Dharma, it is effective. There's still some slight benefit.
단 남진 용달라다 삼당 말로 번저 연나 꽤 요레스 디스페제 삼당 말로다 다 번저 연나 꽤 가려요 다 디르다 디도 민도 다 다주다 괜찮은 민도나 아니 삼다예요 말다.
So in general, we don't think about wealth having any kind of fault. So it's like the way it is renowned to people, from the point of view of how it is renowned or how it is known to people, there's no sense that wealth has any fault. So therefore we don't think along those lines. We don't think that wealth has any kind of fault. So actually, we need to see whether there is a fault to having wealth and possessions or not, because without those, there's nothing we can contemplate.
반주 총 첨부 매내 계산 윤den주의 버지. 아니 반주 다 유엔의 첨부 유엔의 윤den주의 버지. 니가라 윤den주의 버지. 야 반주 체단이야 견지의 버지. 반주 매니 견지 견다 이 니가 신기요나. 다디 반주의 라디가라 아니 예비 윤den의 섬 매비 견의 섬 아니 라니 기부여라. 마라디가라 아니 예비 견의 섬 매비 윤den의 섬 지디 마라네 기부여. 내가 간지와래 기부 용토에 지어라다. 라네 기부도 마라네 기부도 세야지. 디니스 가슴 쉐러라다.
So with regard to wealth, having not much wealth, one should think of the benefits of not having much wealth, and one should think of the benefits of having great wealth. Likewise, one should think of the faults of having a little wealth, and one should think of the faults of having a lot of wealth. So in that way, then if one thinks of both, if one thinks of the faults of wealth and if one thinks of the benefits of wealth, then when one receives wealth, one is able to really enjoy it. And at the time when one doesn't receive any wealth, when one doesn't get it, because of knowing the faults of wealth, therefore there's no unhappiness, one is still happy. So one is happy when one receives it, when one is not unhappy when one doesn't receive it, by thinking of both the faults and the benefits of a little wealth and great wealth. So one is able to differentiate those two aspects, the benefits and the disadvantages.
다 번저 아니 다딜 제자 다 최다 마데나 숙청부 시대다 요소마래 이네 다지 나가지나 번저 예비 견지 다 구마다 딜리니가 요구도 왔어 딜라가 이나 남사 디다 구마 가라 머티리마도 번저기 꽤마르 왔어 딜라도 가브로 아니 양 번저 메나 라 번저 메나 총원다고도 저기 때려 지금도 와 띵어서 튕거로 다디 디는 총원다고 가라 머티리마도 번저 메비 꽤마르 왔어 딜라기민도 디 번저 메비 꽤레스 주고주고도 디는 직디 구마장장도 주고주고 번저 예비 꽤로 왔다 디니 이나 이념마 이념래도 돼 이내 먼저 번저를 차고 여인자 뭐 딘디기 이름 가서 갈수 있다 정보라가 지금도 셈배
So with regard to wealth here, so talking about this idea here, or this expressing this idea here, without connecting it to the Buddha Dharma, it's not that effective, but still it's okay to talk about it. So usually when we say, with regard to a wealthy person, if someone is wealthy, we say, well, having wealth, then a thief may come along. So one of the disadvantages is that it may be stolen by a thief. But usually we feel this is not the fault of the wealth. This has nothing to do with the wealth. This is the fault of the thief. So we're not honest here in this context. We blame the thief. We do not blame the wealth. But when we do not have wealth, then it's because another person doesn't giving it to us. So it's in that case we blame the wealth. We say it's because of not having wealth. So by not having it, there's the sense of when we don't have wealth, we blame the person of not giving it to us. So a salesperson and so forth not giving us the wealth. So again, we don't blame the wealth, but we blame another person. So in that sense, we're not actually honest. We're not really honest with regard to our attitude, having possessions, having wealth, etc. So we blame the thief, or we blame the person who has wealth not giving it to us.
제사 가시고래 옛날 된데라나 이마 자살이 유디 뭐기 시자리 유디 전에 되길라와나 신 강고주고 요래라 되가라 다탈리 요래 뭐 요래 배제 요래 니제다 된 요래 다가로 이 자갈 구마 된데 레이레디 아니 지 되게 되게 말해. 아니 고자 맞잖네 개민도 고체샤네 개개 생각나라 마지막에 개민도 그래서 제버체네 치료 팀에는 다 고자야라마 송세야도 심대도 같이 큐민도 구양 무시우지도 다 샤나나 자라카시 레사디 다 예행 관련한 다 고마춘 용서매와 중요한 지그레마도 매나야 람상 고자 시작고 해 잠잠도 단대 고자디 사지 자자는 다다 태유매 다 어디 고자자 맞아버지 잠잠 제버체는 파시는 다양 같이 왔어요. 세면 제상 생능로를 강해지 라마에 등이지 레데기도
So, as for example, as said before, when Geshe-la was in the south and it was in the monastery in South India, at that time, initially his accommodation was very poor, as he explained early on. So the only things he had in his room were his books, his bed, a cup, his scriptures and so forth. So there's nothing really to take. So even though there were some thieves around who went around the monastery and would try to steal things, but there was nothing in the room that anyone would have taken. So there was nothing that the thief would have been interested in. And so therefore, Geshe-la said you didn't have to lock your door, and you left your door wide open, you never worried. And even if you walked away and you left your door open, you didn't worry about it. So as you walked away, you were not worried about having left your door open, because there was not a sense, there was no worry, there was no concern that a thief may come to take away the few possessions one had. And then later, as he accumulated, as one accumulates more, as the monks had more possessions, then things started changing around. So at that time, one made an effort to close one's door because one was worried that a thief would come along and take those things away. And sometimes when locking the door, the monks would check again whether the lock was closed properly, just because there was worry that one hadn't done so properly and a thief would come. And then upon walking somewhere else, on the way away, walking away from one's room, one may remember, oh, I forgot to, I may not have locked my door, I forgot to lock my door, and again worry arises. So this shows that there's no freedom having these possessions and having now the worry that someone may take them away. There's no real freedom. Without having any freedom over it or having any control over it, one worries about losing one's possessions.
여기 바라지도 디바 랩톱 뭐 몰라도 미드 송제저도 고작 잡네 배마 고작 떠네 랩톱 라트와 제가 랩톱 야고 공치부 유딩이나 송제 카드레 심술레 틱틱
So also some time ago you heard these stories about people losing their laptops during the teaching. So they left their laptops in their rooms. They went to the teachings, to His Holiness's teachings, and at that time thieves would come, break the locks, break in and take the laptops away. So those who had expensive laptops, when they went to the teachings, so in the back of their mind or with the side of their mind would think they were worrying about their laptops, the laptops they have left in their room. So it was just like kind of like ticking away this kind of worry about the laptops.
자, 하나를 주지도 뭐니 이메다 마시. 미산 추구지체 아니 디 김세 미산 교부지어레스 디 와드 빌딩님 통교어레스. 데지 야르르지 요이나 로카시 디시디. 아니 니마지다 미산 친구디 다 오늘 교rin보다 냠도 시브니 콘솔 같이네 강해요레. 말을 비셔 뭐 시브요레. 다 테스트해야는 틱서레스니. 감춘준시 다다강 바 비셔 장제 데레스. 아니 무슨 제체라 미디 비셔도 키어레스. 비셔는 말 고민데스. 가르체네스. 이 말씀이 많이 줄거 봤어요.
So there is an Indian story. Whether this story is true or not, Geshe-la says he doesn't know. But the story goes that there was once a rich family that lived very close to a poor family. So they lived in close proximity. And the people from the rich family could see the house of the poor family. And so one day the people of the rich family were thinking, wow, they've always been our neighbors, those people next door, they've always been our neighbors, but they experience a lot of difficulties, they don't have much money, and since we always got along, we should make them a gift. So the rich family prepared a little box, they filled it with money, and gave it to the poor family. And after 3 days, the poor family returned the money. They said, we don't want the money. And I asked, why not? Well, I didn't sleep for 3 days. I was so worried I couldn't sleep for 3 days.
Chisanta Nordi Ale Tambusu, Kalitan, Chiso, Buare, Let's Chile, and Mitsama Yan, Susumato, Nordi Mongongi, in the Tarva, Kumemabu Indis and Ene, Tenzi Chigri, Yene, Tenzi Chigri, Titsama, Labasung Chevore, Chilita Kaleshusta, and Takilavana Tebadi, Kaya Yomare, Digide, and any Maninga, Lega, Chekale, Anipa. 다 인규다 수수기 체도 수수 부부기 체도 남이 체도 임비기 자리데 남이념도 대롱메 아니 칼라신부 때 임비기 자리 신부데 살롱메 산에 좋아 용롱메 아니 체는 니에 야고마고야 디토다 삼다 딜라나 다 원에 기부테고 알베 말이야 섬단저 시대고 여드지래도 섬단다 직체나
So with regard to wealth, possessing wealth, possessing precious objects, etc. So first one has to work hard to obtain them. This is the first thing. So one has to make great effort to obtain them. And then if there were other people that didn't need any of those, or any wealth, if there were other people that didn't need money and so forth, it'll be easier. But usually other people also need it. So there are people pulling from the right, people pulling from the left. So one needs to protect oneself from all these people trying to kind of take the money away. So one needs to protect oneself from that. And then on top of that, one's attachment doesn't know any limit. So it's very difficult to satisfy one's attachment. And in that way, one works all day long. So on one hand, one feels, I do this for myself, I do this for my children, I do this for my family. But one doesn't have any time to be with the family. One doesn't enjoy being with one's family. There's no time. One is not able to experience the tasty food. There's no real taste to the food. There's no real joy. One doesn't sleep well. So really the question one should consider here, does wealth really bring happiness?
아니 가세오레 디 따따다 있는면은 디 해셈라잖아 따디 인사레 삼바티 이네테 가서 로하시면은 디 총사 매걸 작심세데 게다시 무시브레시다 번저시 요레시다 미세레 말에 디 녀저치니 심주지문도 있잖아요. 아니 심마지부 매버스에게 맨다 니쿠에게 맨다 시부지라레 딘디게 지시기도 딜레디다 콜강 심나 강이 시부지 디르와 라베지라는 디 로카싱은 콜라 세긴슬레기 딘디게 녀다들에 딱 미신다기 어떤지 니수요레시기도 다 제자 아니 번저레 메기다면은 세긴 생기지도 용도 하고에 말에 되면 그러면 초진에다 번저 요래 게타 요래 미 패체기다 이미지 됐으리디 나로도 지침도 있는 생리 기분이다. 근데 애니 성당에지래도 야디.
So whether this is really the case or not, Gisela says he's not sure, but in his mind it seems that way. So a few years ago, Michael Jackson passed away. Michael Jackson died. So he was so famous, he was so rich. But then, upon his death, when they investigated, investigated whether he was killed or not, they found that he had actually accumulated a lot of medicine that he took in order to overcome his depression, his unhappiness, and a lot of sleeping pills. He had accumulated a lot of sleeping pills and so forth, a lot of these pills, and then he took them, and as a result of that, he passed away. So, therefore, although he was so famous, he had so much money, but in the end, he died in such a way due to his unhappiness, not being able to sleep and so forth. Likewise, Geshe-la heard that some years before his death, there were some death threats. People, someone expressed a death threat, or he faced a death threat by someone. So if he hadn't been that famous, if he didn't have that much money, there probably wouldn't be anyone who wanted to take his life. So in that way, from the outside, it seems someone like Michael Jackson having so much money, being so famous, it looks as something desirable. But if one goes deeper, if one really looks inside, one sees the problems and the difficulties that may arise as a result of such a situation. So in that way, it's just a matter of one's attitude.
빈자다 모심을 던지기요 기재진이 부구도서 진지지 던지기도 단 모심만 많이나 다와 가시면 자가나지 모심만 많이 남지 망치로 모심만 던지러요 진지지 던지서 난 내다 쳐서 하고 가. 단 모심만 많이 인지기 뒤치셔. 뒤번주 유바 간다 하고 있어요. 부구디 잡절 주디전에 뭐좀이라 뭐좀 공청 못인데 뒤에 참사는 뭐저 신다지 참사는 뭐저 신다지 따로 있어라. 지난 컨셉 중대로다 가서 그만 인자. 어따디 미사심이 부구를 샤스. 그 주트가 있나? 근데 다 봄자지 또 된데라서레스. 어두스 지르다. 다 디번주 예비견 와다.
단도지 가서 고모고기 되게 뭐다 양생양서 지고
말에 납절을 부구디. 지난 다 부구디 뭐저 뭐 미자 공청 못 따는 당다 다른 미사심이 부구 임바디.
So basically here with regard to rich families, for instance, so oftentimes the danger that they face, so the dangers that they face is that they're being kidnapped. So So there's the danger that their children are being kidnapped. So there's great danger that their children, etc., are being kidnapped. And usually it is people who know this family. It's usually people who know the family that kidnap the children. So in one case, there was one situation where also in a rich family, one of the children was driving a car. And each day, the child was driving a different car. So that showed how rich the child was. And those who were watching him, just by reason of the fact that this person was always driving another car, a different car, they knew this person must be rich. And so they kidnapped him, or they kidnapped him.
제산다 번째 유메니가 로비티 디체와이나 아니 번째 매나니 매베다 번째 용을 체딩이 강에 뒤에 체면도 매네 디기도 세지 아니 유나니야 유베파게 번째 매비 강에 디체 말아 번째 매네 같이 사회에 같이 나는 내가 드레메 디디 강에 디체기면도 디기도 세 유네 디기도 매네 디기도 삼아지 유나 아니 같이네 다 기부 용토해지
So with regard to wealth, there are the faults of having wealth and there are the faults of not having wealth. So to think of all the different problems that may arise as a result of being wealthy, of having money. And then knowing these faults, knowing the disadvantages of being wealthy, then even when one becomes wealthy, it is okay. One knows the disadvantages of that and one feels happy nonetheless. And even if one is not wealthy, still one would be happy of knowing one has averted or one doesn't experience the disadvantages of being wealthy. So in that way, it doesn't matter whether one is wealthy or one is not wealthy. In both cases, one is able to be happy. One is able to be satisfied or happy.
단다디 레란나티 벤다타 차세점니다 로바로다 미지냠도 시베기 로바 얘는 예비야 조라마 다지도와 매나 매비에 강해지요로 쇼니가 삼다 근데 어저 저 있는다 로고 요마로 로고 메디잖아요 maybe 매나 강에 가르치기 요바데 삼다데나 아마지고 잘 몰라 다 말입니다 예나 강에 가르쳐버데 삼다지 다 마디를 강에 되미도라나 야기고 잘로다 다 디코 다 기부세요 마스스를 나발도 다 삼다죠.
So, for instance, with regard to getting married or not getting married, so in other words, having a partner. So, having a partner, there are a lot of problems. Not having a partner, there are a lot of problems. So, both has its advantages and disadvantages. So now, in the case of being an ordained person, so in the case of Geshe-la being a monk, well, we do not have partners. And then, if we think about all the problems of not having a partner, well, we would get very unhappy being ordained. If we were to reflect upon all the problems and difficulties not having a partner, we would be unhappy. But if, on the other hand, we reflect upon all the problems and difficulties one would experience as a result of having a partner, by reflecting upon those, one is happy as an ordained person, thinking, "Oh, I'm so happy, I'm so glad I don't have a partner." So therefore, whether one is happy or not, this is in one's own hand. It's just a matter of attitude. And being happy and not being happy is therefore in our own hand.
디 삼당초지기 디체 다 조조디 번주 예비 쩐다 매비 쩐다 딘디 라보레디 조조디 다 되샤기 쩐차로다 식차 띵서로 좋아이나 균조디 아니 되샤기 균차로 되샤 매버지 팽비 셈지 숙침부지 깨버이나 연애 기부지 매내 기부지 다 고요해요. 되샤디 연나 각체네 연애 다 테스테스 코카도 라운드잖니 친구 테스테스 용거리마도 강해질래디 그래. 지산다 다다디 머시다 조디 기제디 최단 됐는데래 남의 최낭로가 당보 아니 최기 당보디 아니 체디를 땅 세계지시 내고 체디를 땅시디 아니 담년자 번줄롱지 어디를 거다 디게디 참을 땅스 달래 땅시디 전에 르 땅다들 니어 단다 가시기 숨을 되는 순간 별로 체디를 땅이 다 조저버디 기자 치셔저버지 니어랬을래고 인소를 찍지지밀라래 지지밀라다 바로 무수라 땅샤 깨깨 요마다 파타부나로라 코마디마다 깨깨 요마다 파사부케스이 코마디마다 디지리다 구마 요네 제스케 요마다 자 요마 깨깨 요마다 르 땅에 찍디리.
So from the point of view of having wealth, for instance, so when we think about these, so if we say that this is just a matter of attitude, so it's just a matter of attitude such that there are disadvantages to having wealth and there are advantages to having wealth. And if one reflects upon those two, one is able to adjust one's attitude in such a way that one will be happy. But actually the underlying fault of being unhappy with respect to wealth is desire. So if instead of having desire, when we have the attitude that wants to benefit others, no matter whether one has wealth or one doesn't have wealth, one would be happy. So with regard to wealth, if we have with regard to having attachment, having desire, if there is attachment and desire, even if one is able to obtain the object of one's desire, there will only be a little satisfaction, and again one will be unhappy because new problems will arise due to wishing for even more. So therefore, in connection to the Dharma, when we talk about Buddhism, or from the point of view of the Buddha Dharma, we speak about giving up desire with regard to giving up this life. So giving up this lifetime, giving up this life means most specifically giving up our desire, giving up fame, giving up desire with regard to fame, wealth, and so forth. So it is said that in Tibet there were two masters who gave up their life, One of them was Jitsu Milarepa. Jitsu Milarepa, the way he lived in his cave, all he possessed was a pot which he used to prepare the nettles that he ate. So that's the only thing he had. And even if thieves were to come, there was nothing to take away from Milarepa, because all he had was that pot.
아니 세딜레 당에 지디 저 군딩 딩버지도 저 계산자소스.
The other person who is said to have given up his life was the seventh Dalai Lama, Gyewa Khyaltsen Gyatso. So he is the other person who is known to have given up his life, the seventh Dalai Lama.
저 Gyewa Khyaltsen Gyatso 파라보다라 쉬어. 아니 겨울에 며칠에 배기 겨보 차대고. 번절때 요가 땡케. 세딜레 당선에 갈라고 기타 요래 번절 요래 슈서야고 요래 셉지 요래. 세딜레 당선에 갈라고 이 something 지로다.
So with respect to Gyewa Khyaltsen Gyatso, that is the seventh Dalai Lama, well, he lived in the Potala. He lived in the Potala in Lhasa. He was the Dalai Lama. He was the king. He was the leader of Tibet. Had a lot of wealth. Was very famous. Had a beautiful place to stay in. Had a lot of attendants, a lot of assistants, etc. So how can he have given up? How come that he did give up his life when he had so much? So this is something to consider.
민코란의 뢰땅래가 여기 땅스 대참이 비기제 제가 저와께서 코란이 둘래야 코란이 최근 남절 최근 남수면로 최근 남수나 배제디마도 내 인사마시나 메스 상마 다시 집에 신기 인사마마도 내 인사미 뒤셔거리 끼고 뒤숨들마도 제가 안에 제들을 담아 차를 이게 내 제들을 담아 차를.
So when we say give up
최근 남수나 배제
So when we give up one's life, it's basically saying the awareness, one's awareness gives up this life. So it's the mind, it's the awareness that gives it up. So basically from the point of view of what he possessed were the 3 robes of the monks and his scriptures. So this was all he really possessed. So he had a sense that this is what he possessed, the 3 robes of the monks and his scriptures. Everything else, all his other possessions, they, from his point of view, from the point of view of his awareness, they belong to everyone else. They belong to the community. So he had that kind of attitude. That was the kind of attitude he adopted this notion that only the robes of the monk's robes and his scriptures, that's the only thing that belonged to him. Everything else belonged to others. We're there for the benefit of others.
나 정말은 뭐지 공로 다 ngabjuuzini insari kongwata nishu shukjani sungdo donina ngabjuuzini ani nyumuraba digidi pa nyumuraba la pa kapde beti chaya di chasons nyumuraba pechi jigimindo sungdo zamzam jisa ta di jewa ina dindigi chone sheba ina ta tsidi le dawa charuwa.
So taking the present Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the present Dalai Lama, he at the age of 50 years old, he often says that from the age of 20, he started generating an interest in emptiness, and he basically worked hard with regard to understanding emptiness. And then around the age of 50, he opposed the coarse kind of afflictions, the coarse afflictions. So he applied the antidote and he opposed them, so that they no longer arise. So His Holiness sometimes says that. So it basically means that from the age of 50 onwards, he had given up this lifetime. Because of those coarse afflictions no longer arising, he had therefore at the age of 50 given up this lifetime.
Then, pagi tula kari yumi kije di mozu siwa hagoy haburwa. Then nangdangi toni kije sheba ine, tangi goye sheba ina. 정부는 무시 비슈 따야디 저어디 바게 자가중기다 포지 개규스와 이 비슈다 아니 미기 피셔게 참마 바게 신뱅기 치다 방외 딩외 사인자 아니 참성다 되는 자라디니 예나 고해디니 무이테지 술리 그거스 딩리코스 코로나 피셔게 코랑기 야무이테디.
So, what His Holiness, of course, what's going on in His Holiness's mind, Geshe-la says, of course, we cannot know. But just from how His Holiness manifests, by way of how His Holiness manifests, so Geshe-la said he heard that the Indian government gives His Holiness a small salary. So everything that is offered by other people to His Holiness, he offers, he gives away, he dedicates to others. And if His Holiness needs something, he uses his salary to buy it. So even if it's been offered to others, he pays, or even if something is offered, he pays for an object that he needs. So whatever is offered, he gives away. And if he needs something, he actually uses his own little salary, the little money he has as a salary, and he pays for it.
단다 포탄 남중에서 미치가 당사다 다를 중에서 디게디 잡로라다 수수무시지어라 어디라라다 잡아다장 지금 수도는 신신이 뭐다 자기부 주님의 버체 어떤지 요리시기도 하다 하게 좀 있는데.
So when we talk about His Holiness's residence here in McLeod, so his residence, his Potangwa, his residence, so there is the area where His Holiness receives people, so the area where audiences take place, but then behind that, that is the actual area, this is the actual residence where His Holiness lives. And this place is the place of a simple monk. There's nothing extensive, there's nothing luxurious in that area. His Holiness lives just like a simple monk in that area. But this is the place where we don't get to go.
아니 라마지어레 겨르미치기 기초에체 라마의 인딩이지. 지단 코란 자체와 제 자기부 유서나래. 이내다 라마 친구제 두고 인데 테스트 위기와 아니 자지 경험을 무시했다 파취시 수취 나 디자인 경험을 무시했다 돈이 부차는데 거의 남진 슈서들 되는 시인사라 파페 말레니 경험을 무시했을 때 규모 모델입니다 당가에서 직자셔서 제가 뭐뭐 유르서
So once there was a one lama who was one of His Holiness's disciples. So actually this lama was a retreatant, but being a Tuku, being recognized Tuku, he must have had a few possessions. So anyway, his relationship with His Holiness was such that His Holiness gave him teachings, this Lama gave His Holiness teachings, so they would teach one another. And His Holiness, being very pleased with this Lama, he once invited the Lama to this residence. And when to this area in the place where His Holiness lived, where His Holiness actually resides. And the Lama, he noticed that the place where His Holiness stayed was so simple. It was such a simple place that upon returning to his own house, he found his house was too luxurious, and he threw out a lot of things. He felt he lived too luxurious in comparison, comparing his own house to, or his own room to His Holiness's room. He found it too luxurious and threw out a lot of things.
제사다 반저레 게타레 디게라 차박에 메인사 미기 균주체 디오네 마기버 심투에게 요마로다.
So with regard to one's wealth or fame, if there's no attachment to those, even if one gets criticized, even if there's any kind of criticism, it will not be harmed. One will not feel hurt by that kind of criticism or action. So this is sufficient for today with regard to explanation. So if you have any questions.
I heard all the way of analyzing the advantages and the disadvantages of any of the objects of desire in order to see both sides. And also, excuse me, could you speak now? And also,
Can you repeat? Do you want me to repeat the question? Can you do it again?
I heard.
I couldn't hear you. Could you speak now?
Yes, okay, I try. I heard that the need to analyze, to see, to think about the advantages of this and disadvantages of the objects of desire in order to see that there are both sides, and it's not all glamour. And I find it difficult. And also I heard that we have to think and analyze that this object is not the source of my happiness, which I find easier, but also difficult. Easy to understand, difficult to apply. And my question is it really necessary to go through finding the disadvantages of, let's say, wealth or fame, reputation, and instead of trying to understand, because it's easy to understand, I think, that having a good reputation is not bad, it's only not the source of my happiness, and I don't have to run after it or desire it as a source of happiness. Would that not be sufficient?
Instead of thinking of all the disadvantages. 근데 옛날에 칼로 다시 리바만 보다나야 다시 배나 도시기 유익되나지 칼로 벤주도 이나지 아니 칼로 연달아서 와든지 다 줘봐줄래 괜찮은데 네가 여기 줘봐주고 그랬어. 딜레양 줘봐주나 칼로 다 배우 여바디 코세보지 제대이네 다시 문을 나는데 갈래 가보도 다시 단다 디간델라야 다시 소소 삼노 갔던 거를 수수 대화사 디기 용약이 규조 단다 벤줄라서 와든지 테마르지 규조 야 현지에 바디야 디양 치칼로 셸레라 셸 가자 제 셸레라고 이나야 남레 알레 가고 있다 디양 코하고 하고 컨디션이 가르스나 베나 두제기 유기 배운들라 삼노 네바도 땅 고그르베스 다시 그런 가르스 디기 규조 디 가리기메 디 고스야 다랑기 칠량 두자만 용도 땅 소마 말하스 인지미지 도저히 유기 교회다 직선 당고를 해서 공부가 두에 뭐가 있을 것이죠.
다 삼로 동초기 개발해서 다 디셈버성기 되기를 거래. 디기를 봤어.
비심마창 다른 디기라. 셴버들라 삼당고 말아 가서 두저기
삼당고 제. 다디 난기 삼로 동초다 제가 요 디셈버성기 되기를 했어.
말이야. 다다지 디리베나 가서 다시 벤줄라서가 디교에나 삼노마당체 벤주기 돈으로 대화문에 끼야 버려야 말아. 벤줄라서가 딜라덴도 규조디 현지 임발라 디고쳐야 다랑 지기 도저히 용도 좋은 말이야.
제가 디러왔어. 그게 제 현지 요소들이 같이 삼당다 들어왔다. 삼로 동초를 되게 요거든. 디 대점기니 그저 세트고 말이베세나. 다디 세트고 말. 디기 같이 그랬으나 한 삼로 당당들 도당제에 디 소유로 와. 디 삼로 되면은 삼로 당당 교로당 거고도 시 삼로 코레 리그 말아. 다 겐디 디 말에도 겐소디 나로기 삼로 당당다 저거도 세데 하고나 디기다 삼로 당당 교시당 거고도 시 도당디 리그로 왔다. 다 도당들 레세도 교시 같이 태버려. 다 윤대다 겐디 삼당이 모두 교시 태면도 제세이라고 왔다 제세. 다민나 저도 제도는 라시메고 삼다에 요레미다고 참고 삼다에 요레 다마부 삼다에 요라 다단다 체세기다 거기 디기卷다 윤대의 삼다니 이마도 좋습니다.
So Geshe-la says here in response to your question, basically, well, no, that's not sufficient. Why? Because, well, first of all, here Geshe-la not speak from the point of view of Buddha Dharma, just in general. So in general, well, in order to understand that it is a matter of our attitude, basically our happiness does not merely come from wealth, etc. So understanding that, then we need to look at these phenomena. So in order to change our mind, to understand that our happiness cannot really come from wealth and so forth, we need to then look at the disadvantages of wealth. We then need to look at the disadvantages of fame and so forth. So the advantages and the disadvantages, in order to understand that they are not the source of our happiness. That is from the point of view in general, without actually connecting it to the Buddha Dharma. And then from the point of view of the Buddha Dharma, you then of course take into consideration the lack of inherent existence, subtle impermanence and so forth. So you consider the impermanence, etc. That is in connection with the Buddha Dharma. But without taking that into consideration, just in general, common sense, from the point of view of common sense, this would be the answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, my translation did that.
其他的等他的去了个摸摸的差不多的做做能给错了差不多我都的的图比大概有是呢等着了说的被那的看了的写字语言是吧全面的我的买被一点呢啊摸摸的我等着了搞不有点几呢但可是是呢搞不用的可是是呢得了点的拿了主要行不起给主要的差不多有印象安心呢 第刚才的穷色的了，差不接着了。第因为大概这是呢，气温而且，第一的靠地产的，主要是不嘛这边靠都是那对地汤的，先不落下入的。第一的刚才说，主要都下几个月呗个，第看怎么的了，先不落下。然后提不查查的呀，是这没有，就是去了了菜的做，能给错了菜比建议，去了我不得了下入了。 진짜 때라 따나 디요에 때라 때네 기부지 용구 여인자 때라 가부지 메라 따디 마이 세마 기부지 용구 여인자 마 기부데 잔데유디 디게 에는 메라 때라 엄마 가와체 난기 초와를 차주
So in general when we say we are attached when we are attached to external phenomena that attachment actually comes down to or is the result of internal feelings. It's because of internal feelings or internal emotions or internal awarenesses that we are attached to external phenomena. So the reason for that or the sign of that is that, for example, when we eat certain foods, for instance, oily types of foods such as chomen or momos, etc., when we like this kind of oily food, upon eating it, we experience the taste of those foods, and that they lead to a pleasant experience. There's a pleasant feeling that arises in our mental continuum. And therefore, as a result of that pleasant feeling, we become attached to this particular oily food. But when you have a problem with bile, if you have a bile problem, so you have a problem with your liver, for instance, so in that case, you wouldn't enjoy the taste of oily food. So then when you eat any kind of oily food, instead of a pleasant feeling, a feeling of revulsion, an unpleasant feeling arises, and therefore you no longer feel attached to that food. Only when you feel better, only when whatever condition you're suffering from gets better, then you're again attached to that kind of oily food. So likewise with regard to fame, when someone praises us, this makes us feel good. So internally, with regard to our awareness, there's an internal pleasant feeling, and therefore that is created by someone praising us. And therefore we get attached to the praise. On the other hand, if we get criticized, an unpleasant feeling arises. And since we don't want to experience unpleasant feelings, therefore we dislike being criticized. So we react with disliking the criticism. But it actually all comes down to the internal feeling. It is because of the internal feeling that therefore we get attached to an external phenomenon.
다 류기 나자레 세마키바레 다 딘디기 나로라 초아미 되어 레온디 딜레 윤데요레스 딜레는 편도에 뭐요레스 디 중고이나 디삼당 거라다 대기는 힘이 버디 담바이나 난기 기부 초아 대화 딜레온디 딜레 껴요레스 디 제바이나 초아 대화 고구도 나로기 기부도 고구도 세디 메바차 타지도 타주도 나로기 초아 동에디 고구미도 레디 메바차로 체디기 지다 동네 고고도 라트에 거려 말아 이네 체디기 온도 집이다 류기 나사레 생기다 강에레 담 미니바텐 제기 토네 중샤비다 체디기 강에디래 윤대요레스 디섬당 토바이나 안 강에디 타지도 디 고고민도 시에기 셈이 내가 자루로 디 내가 자나 안 강에 중에 생마지고 내가 자루로 다 디나 신지기 아니 초와 대화디 럭균 요바디 섬당 토바이나 안 초와 대화디 타지도 고고도 시에 섬노디 내가 자나 디라리 민도 시에기 마지바디 내가 자루로 디 냥고도 시니디 마지바디 내가 자루로 다 딜을 되자면 초와딜을 되자면 차나 초와 강도 되는 중세기 유딜을 되자면 차를 제 띵sab을 줘디 이내다 최다 만들이 토는 기지시에바이나 최다 제는 기지시에요래 최기 다주다 만들이 토네 안 나는 티키도세 나도그래 야 양주 삼타에로 강에 체는 티키도스 미시디 온도지네 강에 체는 티키도 나토사레 마레 테스칼에 하보면도
So from the point of view of happiness, like happiness and suffering, so usually we wouldn't say that happiness is something good. We wouldn't say being unhappy is something good. So for example, in this lifetime experiencing suffering, experiencing mental sufferings and so forth. So, but if we think that actually these problems can have positive qualities, there can be advantages to being sick, there can be advantages to being criticized and so forth, losing one's fame, then one doesn't feel so unhappy about those problems arising. Similarly, also, if we think about the happiness that arises, the pleasant feeling that arises as a result of eating certain fruits, for instance, right? So as explained before. So if we see the disadvantages of that pleasant feeling, then we're no longer attached in the same way to that pleasant feeling. And if we're not attached to that pleasant feeling any longer, then we're also not attached to the object that provided the pleasant feeling. So we're able to reduce or overcome the attachment to the object that we associate with that pleasant feeling. And actually Genla says, well, in connection to the Buddhist view, this is slightly easier to understand. But if we explain this in connection, without connecting it to the Buddhist view, it may be a little bit difficult to say that having a disease is good or is okay, suffering is okay. It's a little difficult. Can we really say that? It's a little difficult to say that suffering is okay.
다 상인의 다 최단 되는 기시에 인사다 나셔 되기도 하다는 투셔라.
맞아요.
제자다 최단 되는 기시에 온도 전에 애는 준준하나 거래소에서나 강에 태워이나 애는 셈을 껴나리 인디기 내가 제메 차로 그랬어. 마제메가 차와인다 마제왕의 중심이다 꽤 뭐지요. 다 강에 뭐지. 디창만 메가 차로 그랬어. 현도직 디어했어요.
So since Geshe-la will from tomorrow on, Geshe-la will give an explanation that is in accordance with the Buddha Dharma, or that is connected to the Buddha Dharma, he might as well already talk about it now. So Geshe-la says that in the Bodhisattva's way of life, in Shantideva's Bodhisattva ways of life, it says like when we experience difficulties, when we experience sad situations, when there's sad occurrences, they're actually positive. These negative situations, they're actually helpful because they reduce our arrogance, our pride and arrogance. And then through the reduction of our arrogance, they also reduce or eliminate all the faults that are a result of the arrogance. So therefore, not only do negative or sad situations reduce our arrogance, they also reduce all the other problems that may arise as a result of our attitude.
Tena shinchigi ani di mabu yore karsa kange mabu te en di kengi ani chöla du locho en di kengi ani taba tabe sanje jwe tindigi ni chi mabu yode gwa jisata dige dila kange te di shibuji pentaro.
So likewise, when experiencing a lot of problems, when experiencing a lot of sufferings or difficulties, that will turn our mind in the direction of the Dharma. It will move our mind in the direction of the Dharma. And then this moving our mind being moved in the direction of the Dharma, it will move our mind towards liberation and enlightenment. So in that way, experiencing problems is something positive because it moves us in the direction of the Dharma, in the direction of liberation and emission.
Jisata tsechima penje digi shibuji yoya yoba sheyada dungele tendu tabi taba sheyada sangiya sheyada digi namshadi ngone rema rese ta shinju chebuwa kisi ngone yinba yina jisata dagi digi shibu penta kange teding mi digi dira tabardo dostada mi hajangi ta chubu hajangi ta chengu yina shodo dona hore yoba dona tegi ditsi hore yoba ta kore dichi dizani kyong shibu raso kisi nichi ngone yina
So with regard to the next life, so the happiness of next life, with regard to liberation that is free from any type of suffering, and with regard to Buddhahood. So those are the states that we can attain in the future, and those need to be analyzed. They need to be examined. Are they really there? Do they really exist? So, therefore, it is that suffering of nature that can take us in that direction. But then when we think about beings who are very, like those people who are very, very rich or very famous, they actually do not have the interest, they totally lack the interest to move their mind to kind of pay attention to the Dharma. They don't even have time to pay attention to the Dharma, to practice the Dharma. So actually having those kind of objectives, having wealth, having fame and so forth, can be a great disadvantage, for they keep the person away from generating an interest in the Dharma. They prevent a person from generating such interest. Likewise, when we experience some problems, some difficulties, it is easier to generate compassion for others. Whereas if we didn't experience those types of problems and difficulties, it would be much more difficult to generate compassion for others, or cultivate compassion for others.
Nangi amala sonna che nge shu tabin serwa sonna ge dula pala yu so rubo la krina yo res che che ta la ve ke yo mar ta pala ka ju chi mo che jam tin de lo ha ji che la ne pala ha la yi serwa shu ta ani pe ke ja ri ser ani amagi ni ma le bo lo che so rubo la krina yo res na ta ti la de ta len te go ma ro phog so do mo sa ta go res.
So there's a story of the mother, Gena's mother. Gena said mother's mother. So a story about a mother who had great pain and great tooth pain, and so then the husband, the husband reacted by saying, "Well, how can you have pain? You know, it's like this dead tooth. How can you have pain with regard to a dead tooth?" And then a few years later, the father had experienced the same kind of pain, and the mother remembered. So she kept quiet after the father said something, so she kept quiet. But then the next time when the father experienced the same kind of pain, the mother said, "Well, why are you crying? It's just a corpse it's just a dead tooth." And the father said, "Female tooth and male tooth are not the same."
아니 팬도 가리 요바디 가장님아 맞죠 기제대 시에나 신제 최다 만제니 라버도 최다 전에 기시형도 산제선이 인데 섬김이 겨워지시 디 자와의 닝지레스에 기성로나 레상인지기 다 강에 채는 닝지기에 팬도 그랬으디 디디 있나다 강에 뒤중에 되게도 세야지기 있으나 당도 렌도 거로 당도 렌사도 세마지 버디요 말다.
So, therefore, having compassion. So here we can see the benefits of having compassion. They were explained before when not connecting it to the Dharma. So even without connecting it to the Buddha Dharma, there are a lot of benefits that Geshe-la explained before with regard to generating compassion. But then with regard to the Buddha Dharma, from the point of view of the Buddha Dharma, it is said that the root of enlightenment is compassion. So in that way, we can understand the importance of compassion being the root for Buddhahood and accept the suffering. In other words, see it's okay to suffer and actually take on the suffering. Seeing it, taking on the suffering voluntarily. And if we do so, if we experience problems and difficulties and we take those on voluntarily, then there's no longer any suffering.
시당시 지도 계지 견사 쇼 차로더라. 동해 중에 되게도 남나 동해 영어 말했어. 대화 중 대화 매네 되게도 남나 아니 기회 용 그랬어. 계지 견사를 차로.
So it's actually quite funny if you think about it. If you say it's okay to have problems, if you accept the problems, there's no longer a problem. And if you say it's okay, there is no happiness, then you're happy. So it's actually quite curious that this is the case.
So
we meet again tomorrow at 1:30. In class again tomorrow at 1:30.